Okay then, hi everyone, and welcome to the Power of Thought Leadership. Every person has knowledge to share webinar. Thank you so much for coming. So before we get started on the topic of today's webinar, let me introduce myself properly. So my name is Beth Wakefield. So I'm the creative strategist here at Gel Studios. As of September, I would have been with Gel for 2 years now, and I work primarily within the marketing department, specializing in copywriting, content creation, SEO, and GEO, which is generative engine optimization. And I also specialize in thought leadership, which makes me perfect for this particular webinar. On a more personal note, I spend about 99% of my time in the cinema. I am a certified cinephile and I love going to cinema in my spare time, spend most of my time there. I used to be a university lecturer, so I used to teach postgraduate and undergraduate students marketing at Bath University, and my favourite film is Halloween 1987. I just think the film itself is great and the soundtrack is just iconic, so you can't really go wrong. Now, for those of you that don't know a lot about Gel Studios, we are a purpose-led and results-driven creative agency based in Swindon. So what does purpose-led actually mean, though? So purpose-led means that every creative solution we deliver for clients aims for tangible success, like long-standing impact that achieves their goals in the best way possible. And beyond that, it's actually about contributing to the community around us. So ensuring that our growth fuels positive and lasting change for our local area, whether that's pro bono work, donations, or getting involved in initiatives in the local area. Our mission is to deliver impact through strategic thinking, creativity, and collaborative partnerships that drive sustained success. And unsurprisingly, our vision is to inspire change through creativity, which is only bolstered by our B Corp certification that we achieved a couple of years ago. So, what exactly are we covering today? So, a few things. First and foremost, what exactly is thought leadership in 2025? A lot of people have negative connotations of this word, and a lot of people have positive, but today we'll kind of outline what it truly means to be a thought leader in 2025. We'll start talking about ways to start sharing thought leadership for your brand. So if you're sat there thinking, I don't really know how to get started, that will kind of lay out step one, step two for you. And then also how all of those things work together to improve your brand visibility overall. So if you're on this webinar and you're a beginner to thought leader, that's kind of what I was aiming for. So this isn't for the experienced people that know thought leadership inside and out. This is for a marketing manager or someone in the team who knows thought leadership is important and the brand needs to be putting that kind of thing out there, but they don't really know how to start. So they'd be the kind of person to be like, I don't know if I have anything worth saying. Our team isn't senior enough for this. And is this even really worth doing? Who knows? So also worth noting before we begin properly, questions will be at the end, so save all of that for the end of the webinar. I will open up the chat for everyone to get in touch. And then if you're avidly making notes throughout, don't panic. You'll be emailed a PDF and a recording of these slides later. So yeah, sit back, just enjoy the content. So first and foremost, what do we actually mean when we say thought leadership in 2025? Is it an outdated marketing approach or is it essential? That's what we need to decide. I can tell you what it's not though. So it is definitely not this, which is a traditional academic starter pack. So in 2025, thought leadership is a bit more progressive than it used to be. Before it was like, how many white papers have you published? How many academic references do you use? How many members of your team have doctorates and things like that? And it made people beneath that feel very small and it felt very inaccessible to the average person. Whilst nowadays I feel thought leadership is not that, and it's become much more accessible. It's not the corduroy blazer with the round spectacles, and it's not the fountain pen, and I've written 80 million books and I'm smarter than you. It's a lot more value driven, as it were. So let's clear the air. Thought leadership in 2025 is about sharing expertise in a way that's helpful, honest, and human. So it's not clogging an academic article full of words that people don't even understand. It's about sharing expertise that's helpful, honest, and human fundamentally. So that is kind of a summary of what it is now. It's about starting conversations, not just broadcasting messages. So thought leadership is not just about, I'm going to say some words and no one's going to be able to input on that. It's about, I have an opinion, I have lived experience. What do you think on that? And there's a lot more opinion sharing than there used to be. And it's also about building trust by showing your expertise. So obviously, the more confidence and the more trust and the more professionalism that you carry into your content and the more knowledge that you share, the more trust you build with your audience as well. So it's all about building that relationship with a client, with someone in your team, someone higher up, who knows? It's all about building trust. But yeah, too long, don't read. It's about sharing your expertise, perspective, or experience to help your audience solve problems or understand a topic better, fundamentally. It's not about doctorates. It's not about white papers. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's just being helpful, fundamentally. And why does it really matter? Well, the stat on the right-hand side proves that there is a kind of surge in thought leadership, that buyers are now considering thought leadership more valuable than just marketing materials. So what you put on your social media and the brochures that you hand out are really helpful. But if you want to make an impact with people and buyers for your brand, then the best way to do that is to demonstrate thought leadership. How are you more of an expert than your competitors? Because marketing materials and content isn't always enough anymore. So now that we kind of understand that thought leadership is not about having doctorates, not doing white papers, it's about being valuable. If you're someone who's like, I actually don't know how to get started and I'm worried that I'm going to do this wrong, I've just kind of put together some steps for you. But the best way to start is to have a point of view, a willingness to share, and a desire to help others. If you're someone who's doing this for ego and you just want to seem like the smartest person in the room, you're probably not doing it for the right reasons. So make sure that your desire to help others and your desire to provide value to clients, customers, people in your team is there, because thought leadership can quite easily turn sour when you kind of make yourself the biggest person in the room, because that's not what it's about anymore. So step one is picking your people. So if you're a marketing manager or someone that's going to manage thought leadership in a business, you need to be careful that obviously it's not all landing on your plate. And remember that the people around you in your team are all experts in their field respectively. So you should be leaning into that where possible. So look beyond the titles. You don't always have to lean on the CEO or the head of research. There are people who are exec or assistants that might have something valuable to say. So please don't get lost in that, oh, if we speak to our CEO, that's going to look more impressive. I think it's more impressive when a business can demonstrate expertise from every level. So think about passion and experience more than the job role when you're picking the people to get involved. And if you're anything like what I get with when I work with clients on thought leadership, is that a lot of people hand me a person and they say, I don't want to write the content. I don't feel comfortable writing. I'm not that clever. And I'm just not doing it. And they're quite hard to get involved. What I would say is if someone pushes back, is to say to them that I will write the content for you and let me interview you. So there's no stress on them. It takes 15 to 30 minutes of their day. So they're not struggling over an article for 6 months, and they can feel a bit more comfortable just spewing what's in their head at you, and then you can build an article out of that. As long as you can come prepared with questions, you're clear on the topic and they're clear on the topic and questions, it'll be a quick little interview and that'll be that. And you won't have to chase them for 6 months to get the blog finished. That's definitely a way that's benefited us in the long run at Gel. Next step is to find your topics. So obviously, what do your customers keep talking about? What misconceptions exist in your industry? What trends are shaping your world? What's your take on a hot topic? And what new products or services has your business introduced and why? So these are some great examples, especially that last one. I find that a lot of people are interested in the development that goes into new products and services. Whether you think it's boring or not, it just adds that extra layer onto your business and it feels a bit more transparent, obviously within reason. You don't want to give them everything. But finding a topic, it doesn't have to be that deep. It's not, you're not curing cancer, you're not reinventing the periodic table, you're just trying to be useful, like it says at the bottom, whether that's to one person or 300 people, you're not reinventing the wheel. Just think about what's in your industry, what's a pain point, what's a benefit, how do you benefit other people, what are the trends, are there any LinkedIn posts that you can lean into and talk about a topic that's really prevalent right now? Have a think, but I refuse to believe there's no topics out there because there always is. You just got to dig a bit deeper and not take yourself too seriously because sometimes you can just get so in your own head about it that you can't get started. Step three is to choose your formats. Obviously, you have the standard blog post, and that's fine. But thought leadership has moved beyond that, and you can post it in any way that you want, whether it's a podcast or just videos on Instagram. It depends on what is easiest for you. And what I would recommend is just going with what is easiest to you, because if you can't maintain it and it feels like hard work, you will not be able to maintain thought leadership in your brand. And that is a shame because consistency is key with thought leadership and any kind of content, really. If you can't maintain it, you won't see the results. So pick what feels easiest to you, whether that's writing, recording a video, podcast, whatever works. Step four is understanding that thought leadership content can go a long way, and that yes, if you start with a blog post, it doesn't have to end there. And this content is kind of limitless. As long as you're not dating it and it's not specific to a location or an event that's happening right now that will be dated in 6 months' time, thought leadership can keep going on and on and on. And even if you update it and tweak it every couple of years, you can reuse the content. So in this diagram here, I've kind of demonstrated how one blog post can lead to several different outlets. So this blog post could be put into a newsletter. It could be an entire email just about the topic. It can be taken onto social media, where it could be a reel, a carousel, whatever you want it to be. And then you can get your team to repost, share, comment. It keeps going. The engagement is high. And then if there's something that you really want to dive deep into, You could host a podcast, or you could record a video of your team talking about this topic in more detail. And people love that. They love the short snippets of podcasts online. So it's always worth considering if you have the tools to do so. And then if you're extremely proud of the content that you've written, you could send it into a press release that goes to trade press, something, into a magazine that you want to land in your sector, things like that. So you don't have to just keep it within your website. You can try and push it elsewhere. And then once you've hit the end of that cycle and you're like, oh God, I don't really know what to do with this piece of content now, leave it. And then in 6 months' time, if you're having a blip where you're like, oh, we're running out of content, I don't know what to talk about online, you can repost it, you can talk about it again. Or you can reschedule it in a strategic way instead of just trying to fill in the gaps. Thought leadership content is fab for that. And if you ever run dry, it's great to kind of, replenish socials, replenish your emails, make sure you can lean back on it. And then if it needs updating, just go in and update it then. Step 5 is to make it part of your strategy. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I'm just going to write one blog post a month and call it quits, and that'll be all I do for thought leadership for my brand, that's all fine. And people do that, and I can't stop people from doing that, but that's not how you do it properly. So thought leadership needs to be more than an afterthought. It needs to be, how does this impact everything that we do after it? So if we upload this blog and it's tackling a pain point of our client, can we put that into an email? Can we make a campaign? Can we send a PR box out to those people? Can we get in touch via telephone to talk about it? Have a think about that. And then from a marketing perspective as well, because obviously I'm in marketing, so I think about it this way, you can also look at the free examples I have listed there. So how can it tie into your keyword rankings? Is there an opportunity for you to pull in keywords that you're struggling to rank for into the content to get you higher on search? How can the content strengthen your website? So internally linking to other pages, just having content on your website will strengthen your website fundamentally because you're not leaving it with 2 pages with barely any writing. You'll have consistent blog posts, consistent content, which will make your website all the more appealing. And then also, how can your content target AI? So AI overviews that we have in Gemini and ChatGPT are fed information that they feel is useful, and then they present them to the user. So if you're writing helpful, valuable content that's directing someone in a way that helps them in their job or their sector or just providing them with information, there's a chance that your blog content could end up in the AI overview, which is, prime real estate on search right now because it's at the top of the page. And if someone keeps seeing your brand there, keeps seeing your articles there, they will start to build a rapport with you and consider you a thought leader in that sector. So it's not just about one blog post a month, it's about how that blog or that video or that social post can feed into multiple elements across the board, across multiple platforms. So if it's the one blog a month approach that you're thinking of, maybe reconsider that a bit. And then step 6, which is really important. When I was a university lecturer, you see it every day. Thought leadership and being the smartest person in the room can feel quite heavy on people. And there are people out there that are not going to feel so confident about sharing their views, even if they are really knowledgeable and they're very successful. So if you are leading thought leadership in your brand or you're pushing for it, make sure that you're championing everyone. And like I said, not leaning on the CEO because probably he's too busy, he or she's too busy. And you need to make sure that the people on the lower levels feel like they're contributing to the same amount. So yeah, support drafts, make sure everyone has an opportunity to contribute and just celebrate work from all levels, no matter the complexity. Because thought leadership is ego. Back in the day, it was ego, and you can easily slip into that. And then before you know it, someone is like, I'm not doing a blog article because I just feel a bit silly. So make sure that you're always considering how you're making people feel if you're asking them to contribute in a way that's thought leadership. Okay, so that's kind of like my step by step, just to get you started, just to get you off the bat a little bit, because I understand that thought leadership, when you put it down on paper, it can feel a bit daunting. But if you follow these steps and consider those, it'll feel a bit easier. If you've got your team on board, you know where it's going, you know how to make it strategic, and you're confident that you can make people around you feel supported. So, next one, final part of the webinar is basically how on earth does it even improve brand visibility? So you've done all those steps and you're like, right, I'm going to write content then. How does that content work and how is it going to boost visibility for me? Like, am I writing content for the sake of it or am I doing it for another reason? So every time I sit down with a client and talk about thought leadership for a client that's never explored it before, I kind of end up looking like Charlie Day in this GIF because they sit down and say, can you just write me some blogs? And we always encourage our clients at Gel to kind of think differently about it and think like, okay, we're writing you blogs, but can that influence your campaigns? Can it connect to everything else that you are doing? Can it create a landing page? Can it create social media? Can you interview a partner? Can you interview a client as a result of it? Like it is not just singular, it connects to everything. And in the next few slides, I'll explain how it does that. But yeah, kind of feel like Charlie Day in this gift, just manic and crazy at times because they just look at you like it's just a blog and it's never that. So what it does is it powers your SEO. I like to think of thought leadership as just a glorified way of saying keyword opportunity because it is. If you're writing content that targets questions and queries and topics that people are searching for when they look for businesses like you, you're more likely to start ranking for those terms, and in turn, more people come to your website for the traffic. So make sure that if you are considering thought leadership, you're not just thinking up topics off the cuff, that you're actually thinking, okay, what terms, what questions, what topics and trends are people looking for when they come to me? Is it like pain points? Is it benefits? What are they looking for? And do your keyword research to ensure that you're hitting all the marks there. It will also help you build topical authority. So over time, if you continuously talk about one topic on your website and you continuously do it well and consistently and it's strong content and it makes sense and you're not overdoing it and you're not writing like an academic and making things complicated for the sake of it, Google will reward your domain for that because it will start to associate you with that topic, and over time it will bring you up the rankings for anything related to that, and you could end up in AI overviews as well. It also increases your chances of earning backlinks. So if you're writing really strong content and there are journalists out there in the world who need to reference information about trending and relevant topics, it may be that they find your article, and then if they're good and ethical journalists, they will reference and link your work in their article, which will earn you a backlink. And if you know anything about SEO, you know backlinks are like gold dust. So it is a good way for your website to be mentioned elsewhere and your work and your thought leadership to be pulled onto bigger websites. You could even get referenced by the BBC if you time a topic well. It also supports your technical SEO setup, so schema markup. It's basically just a piece of code that you put into the back end of your website that helps Google to identify certain areas on your website. So if you had like an FAQ section, you would put an FAQ schema markup in the back end to help you identify. Every time you write a blog post, you can insert specific schema markup that helps Google identify what you're answering, what you're talking about, which can really help you in search because Google doesn't have to do the groundwork. It knows what it's looking for, and then it will pull your content, make it look better in search results, and just benefit you on the go. It also keeps your website alive and Google friendly. So there are websites that obviously get built, content is written, and then they're not touched for 5 years, and then the website's redone, and then they're not touched for 5 years. If you're one of those people where the website just does not change and there's no consistent uploads or consistent changes or blogs, Google can start to think that your website is kind of dead and it's got outdated content on because it can see that you've not uploaded anything in a very long time. And obviously, it's not going to present that to someone who's putting in a query because they're going to be thinking, well, this hasn't been updated since 2019, so it's probably not going to be right. So it won't put you as a priority in search. So if you are updating with blogs, even if it's just one blog a month, Google can see that you're making those changes and it will consider you alive, as it were. It also appeals to AI, as I mentioned, generative engine optimization, the fancy term for it. So AI exists to be helpful to us, and the content you are writing is fundamentally helpful. So if you are targeting topics that people are searching, AI will look for that. It will find all those keywords that you're looking at, and it will say, okay, we've got an answer and we've used this article to help us write it, and you'll be linked in the AI overview, which is very powerful if used correctly. If you want to learn a bit more about generative engine optimization, I actually did a webinar on that and how to write content for AI a couple of months ago. So if you head to Gel Studio's website, which will be linked at the end of these slides, and head to our insights area in our blog area, you will find the generative engine optimization blog, which also has my webinar embedded into it. So that kind of walks you through how to write content for AI specifically, because it is similar to SEO, but it is slightly different. So it's just worth considering if that's ever something you want to explore in your business. What it does next is build personal and organizational authority. So obviously, if you're posting about all of your knowledge, your organization, your brand as a whole starts to look more confident. You're kind of answering the questions that people want, and you're just putting yourself out there and stressing opinions, obviously not controversial opinions, but opinions that people need. And when clients and customers come across you, they'll think, oh, they know what they're talking about. So without realizing, they're building an authority of you. And you're not just a supplier, you're like an authority and a supplier. So, and there's also the personal element as well. So if your team are writing these blogs and you're kind of tagging them in the article that so and so wrote this, they can share that on their LinkedIn. They can post their opinions if they want to, and they can actively get involved with the community around that topic. And over time, if they do that well enough, they can start to be known in their field. So you have an organizational benefit and you also have personal benefit for people in your team if they are interested in putting themselves out there like that. It can also open the doors to partnerships and podcasts and panels. Obviously, this is a bit of a longer game. You're not going to post a blog and then get invited to a panel the next day. But if you're consistent and you keep going at it and you're constantly trying to tap into and channel all these topics that people are talking about, then eventually you might see a sponsorship come through the door. People might want to partner, maybe even awards. You might get invited to a podcast or to speak at a panel in an event that you maybe want to attend in the future. So possibilities are endless there. It also strengthens your employer brand as well. So from a hiring perspective, people that want to work for your business will suddenly see this like kind of aura of confidence and knowledge, and they'll think, okay, I want to work with people like that versus a brand that doesn't demonstrate its knowledge and just says, we sell this service. I know which one I'd rather work for. And it's the one that gives its employees a voice and shares knowledge and kind of just has, like I said, an aura of confidence and authority. And naturally, it will build trust with your audience, especially if your competitors are quiet. So, if you're in a sector where you know that thought leadership isn't really the be all and end all, and not a lot of people do it, and you choose to start doing it and you strategically plan that out, you'll see that your audience start to lean your direction because they'll be like, well, they're not putting themselves out there and they are, and they're providing me with knowledge that I didn't know. They're answering the questions I want answered. They're constantly giving good and fresh opinions about these things. And without realizing, they'll start to kind of trust you more than maybe the competitors who just say, we sell this, we sell that. Have you been to our website? Because it's just hollow, isn't it, in comparison to thought leadership? And on that note, hollow content, thought leadership, if it's not written by AI, may I add, is engaging and human. If you're planning on writing blog posts and just putting a topic into AI and calling it a day, then I encourage you not to, because that is not the way to go about it. And unfortunately, that's what happens a lot with thought leadership nowadays, is it's a quick prompt into AI and then they call themselves, doctor of something without even trying. But if you are going to write content that's engaging and human and based on the conversations that you're having with your team, or your team writes the blog themselves, it will provide marketing managers, people dealing with content for your brand, a constant stream of genuine opinion-led conversation-worthy content. And obviously, the biggest challenge that we face nowadays is what content to create. And thought leadership, as mentioned in my previous diagram, is endless. You can keep using it. It will drive you more engagement because lived experience equals shares, likes, and comments. And from an algorithms perspective, if people are liking, sharing, and commenting, I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, but the more people engage, the more people that see it. And if your team are sharing it as well, you got your CEO, your execs, your assistants, all of them. If they're sharing it, whether they're adding their opinion or not, it's broadcasting to their network as well. And as mentioned on the previous slide, building their personal brands, letting people know that it's not just the founder who's doing all the work, but it's all of the team doing the groundwork as well. And obviously, creating opportunities to connect. If you write a post and it's impactful, people will DM you, you might get invited to events. Same thing about getting invited to the panels. This kind of content encourages engagement because it feels fundamentally human if done correctly. Your experiences influence other people, they feel valued or they feel like they want to challenge it. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's respectful. Okay. So, in summary, how does it improve my visibility? It boosts SEO and GEO, ranking for niche keywords, earning you backlinks, and improving your overall website health. It will build your authority, position your team as trusted experts, not just service providers, and it will fuel your content. So, it'll give you engaging, shareable content that drives traffic and leads, and then fundamentally just drive growth across the board. When you have these three working in tandem, your growth will increase. So, you'll have increased visibility, credibility, and potential opportunities across channels, whether that's going to an event, hosting a panel, or ending up in trade press because you've put your article out as a press release. The quote on the top right is one of my favorites, and it's always one that I lean into because it's true. If you end this webinar still thinking, oh, thought leadership is such an afterthought, like I can't, I don't have the time for this, then that's fine. But just remember that it's not foundational. And if done correctly, it can power everything from social to search. So all of that hard work that you put in to try and understand, what I need to do next, what can we do in February? I'm not sure what content we can do. Thought leadership can feed you for months if you plan it out right. And it can be ad hoc, it can be planned. It's a very powerful, powerful tool. I have an example on this slide. So this is like bias from me, because this is my partner. So Matt Freeman, he is the Centre Director at Future Space in Bristol, which is a multi-award winning innovation centre for high-tech businesses. So basically a place for startups to come in and set up their office, but they get access to like labs and academics, and because they're on a university campus, it's very beneficial for them. And this is a perfect example of how thought leadership in a newsletter has transformed into something else. So he's created his own sub-brand called Innovate Together. And it started off as an Innovate Together think piece where he would just upload a newsletter, pretty standard for thought leadership, about topics in the industry and maybe a service that's being introduced at Future Space, like, for example, the virtual office offering that they now have. And that would go out every month. He'd get good engagement on it, building up the subscriber base. It's not his main priority, but it's always nice to put it out there when you're like the strategic head of a business. And then as that grew, he introduced the Innovate Together podcast. which is where he talks about the topic of that month's newsletter with a professional. So he has lots of links across Bristol in the tech ecosystem where they all want their own kind of claim to fame and they'd like to come and talk about a topic with him. So they can argue, they can discuss, they can debate in this podcast, but it's really interesting to see how a newsletter topic can make it into a long form piece of content like that. And then obviously they cut it up, snip it up, and put it on social media. And then as a result of this podcast, as more people got involved, an event was started called the Innovate Together Breakfast. So obviously you have, I think it's about 53 businesses that live at Future Space right now. So once a month he hosts a breakfast event where the topic of the newsletter and the podcast is brought forward to this event. There's pastries, all the businesses in the hub can come and join and they can bring people along. It's also invited out into the outside world as well. And then they bring panelists along. So they bring four other experts to sit at the front and discuss the topic and get engaged with the people in the room. So this is a perfect example of maybe not a national global company like Microsoft doing thought leadership, but a little innovation hub on the University of West of England's campus, just trying to push thought leadership beyond a little bit and also bring people together because it can feel quite lonely, thought leadership, when actually it doesn't need to be. And you can write a newsletter in your office on your laptop, but you can invite people to talk and you can get people to come to an event and talk about that topic a bit more thoroughly. So this is a perfect example of just kind of growing out from one little newsletter to a full-on event once a month that's now consistent, and he's got people buying his arm to come and talk at it again, because at the end of the day it is a sales pitch. These people come to these events because they want to talk to the businesses that are there, but at the same time everyone benefits from it and everyone learns something new. So fundamentally very effective. So just to recap, thought leadership in 2025 is a trust building tool, not a vanity exercise. If you're doing it for ego and you're not doing it to help other people, you're not doing it for the right reasons. It's about being genuinely useful to your audience. So think about what they want to know, do your research, and if you find the right topics, it will benefit everyone. And it is a long-term investment in visibility and reputation. Fundamentally, it's not going to be overnight. And if you want the impact that maybe you saw at Future Space, it's going to take time. To get started, choose the people that you want to work with, but give everyone a chance and make sure that you capture their insight in a way that's beneficial to them. So if they don't want to write the article, make sure that you're putting things in place to ensure that they feel comfortable, whether that's interviewing them or they send you a voice note where they ramble at you, who knows? But whatever they feel comfortable doing, publish consistently within reason. Obviously, if once a month is achievable for you, then that's fine. But make sure that if you are publishing like that, that you're trying to link it to your strategy. So you're influencing other elements as well. And what you need is something helpful to say, a place to say it, and a plan to keep showing up fundamentally. You don't need to overthink it at all. So I always lead with this and end with this as well, is if you have ideas that are of value to others, you are a thought leader. So if there is any part of you that is worried that you're not smart enough, you don't have a doctorate, like I said, ignore that. If you think you have lived experience that will value someone else and make them feel like, oh, she understands or they understand, and that's great, you are a thought leader. It's not doctorates, it's not white papers, it's not academic references anymore. It's just leading with value, as it were. Okay, then. So I'm just going to open up the chat a sec in case anyone does have any questions. You should be able to chat now. Obviously, if you have no questions, that's absolutely fine. I'll just wait a few minutes. And yep, we will see. Okay. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll walk through the final slides, and then if you are typing out a longer message, that's absolutely fine. No worries if you're, thinking about it. But I do have my email at the end if you do want to drop me any questions outside of the call. Okay. So if you listen to all that and it's like all well and good, but there's still an element of like, I'm not feeling overly confident and maybe I just need a bit more steer from someone else, then we can definitely support you on that. So I kind of lead on thought leadership for most of our clients. And I can tell you now that most of our clients that do kind of bring thought leadership into their work, most of them kind of approach and say, we have no idea what we're doing. I rarely have an opportunity where, they say, oh, we know what we're doing. We just need a little bit of help. So if you feel like you're the only one, that's fine. But what we can do at Gel Studios is work with you to make it feel achievable. We can shape a clear and strategic direction for you. So just 12-month plan, 6-month plan, whatever works for you. We'll turn your team's knowledge into high quality, engaging content. So making sure that we're tapping into all the topics that are right for your business. We'll help publish it across the right platforms, whether that's trade press, socials, or TikTok, if you will. We'll optimize every piece for SEO and keywords to boost visibility. So if we'll definitely look into keyword research, sit down with you, figuring out what you're targeting, what you're missing out on, And if you're interested, we can also help your content get mentioned in AI responses. But a lot like SEO, GEO, and AI takes time. So that's a long game, but we can work with you towards that. Okay, so yeah, feel free to reach out to me. If you have any more questions you don't want to ask them on the call, that is absolutely fine. My email is in the bottom right on here. And when I send you the PDF of these slides later on in the day, you'll have the link to my LinkedIn profile and also the link to our website to kind of explore all of our other offerings and all of the other marketing elements that we provide, and maybe graphic design, branding, whatever you're interested in. Just final note though, this webinar has been part of a series that we've been hosting for the past 6 weeks, and next week is our final webinar with David, who is our head of sales and client success. He's doing one called From Clicks to Customers, Turning Marketing into Sales. So if that is something that you're interested in, then please, sign up, go to our Eventbrite, Gel Studios Eventbrite, and sign up today, same time next week at midday. So yeah, that's kind of me on everything. So thank you so much for coming. And I hope it was useful. Thank you, Melanie. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I hope this is helpful and it's just giving you the confidence to get going, because I understand that thought leadership is hard work and everyone deserves the right to say what they need to say, but you need to put the grind in a little bit. And once the strategy's there and you feel confident, it's fine. But yeah, do reach out if you have any questions, and thank you so much. I'll end the call now. Thank you, guys.